Armen Karamanian. I'm one of the co-founders and partner at Lendity. Thank you for coming to our conference. As you know, the theme is ecosystem, platforms, and embedded finance. And in this section, we're going to highlight two great companies. One is a company based in the US, run by our keynote speaker, Renaud Laplanche, that is innovating around credit cards. And the second one is a French company that is innovating on e-commerce, how they're embedding installment payments in their checkout. And just by coincidence, both companies are run by French businessmen. But before we dive into these opportunities, I want to share with you what happened in private debt during COVID. And since the two companies that we're going to talk about are around private debt in consumer lending, let's focus on consumer lending. So I'm going to share my presentation with you. I think, Rafael, you gotta give me host privileges so I can share my screen, please. Just 1 second. I'm a host now, so let's share. So, perfect. So here, credit cards, I want to share with you what happened during COVID with consumer debt. And let's start by looking at credit cards. Credit cards are a great proxy of consumer debt, and we have a long historical data. So this is data coming from the Federal Reserve since 2000 to June 2020, in where we see the average interest rate on credit cards. And we see that it fluctuates somewhere between 12 to 14%. Now let's look at the charge-off. So here in orange, you're seeing the charge-offs. We see a couple of spikes around 2001 and a big spike beginning in 2009 relating to the financial crisis. But for us as investors, it's really important to look at the net, which is the green line here. And historically, and just to frame it from a context, we see that credit cards receivables are very resilient, resistant to crisis, and a good performance even during crisis. So with this framework, let's look now at what happened during COVID. And we see at the right-hand side of the graph that we see a dip in the net return, and that's mostly during changes of interest rates. But let's look at what happened before and after COVID. So here we're seeing data from a credit bureau agency and also from a rating agency called Kroll. And this data is showing delinquency rates of different consumer products. These includes auto, credit cards, installment loans, student loans. And we see something extremely surprising, that during COVID, all these different categories, delinquencies are going down. So I want you, the participant, to think about this for 1 second and go back in March, early March, when lockdowns were happening in different jurisdictions. Did you think that delinquencies were going to go up, stay the same, or go down? So I'm going to ask you to vote now. I'm going to share with you a poll. Let's see here. So I'm going to launch a poll and you will be able to vote. You should see there a pop-up in your screen. So we're getting results here. Thank you everybody for voting. Yep. Let's get a little bit more of results in. So think about March, lockdowns were happening everywhere. Did you think delinquencies were going to go up, stay the same, or go down? Great. So I'm going to end the poll and share the results with everybody. So there you see the results. We at Lendity, we thought delinquencies were going to go up. So we expected to see more defaults. And let's go back to the presentation. Now, the question that we have is why the delinquencies actually went down. And a couple of things happen, and we always look at the data to help us guide our understanding. So the first thing that happened is that we have a historical record-breaking increase in disposable income. The disposable income increased by 48%. This never happened before. And if we think about it, is we have a lockdown, we can't go to a restaurant, we can't go to a movie theater, or our vacation plans, holiday plans, travel plans got canceled, and suddenly households have more income. Now, the other side of the coin is that all these businesses are suffering, right? So hotels are suffering, airlines are suffering, restaurants are suffering. But from a consumer perspective, there is a huge increase on disposable income. And this has two consequences. The first one is that there is a historical record-breaking increase in personal savings. And here we see an increase of 26% in personal saving. And the second thing that happened as a consequence is that the consumers start paying down their debts. And we see a massive deleveraging, again, never seen before in history. Now, our conclusions on this is that the consumer is really in a strong financial position. They're stronger than in the pre-COVID era, and they're stronger than in any other crisis in history. And this is mainly driven by an increase in disposable income and a massive deleveraging. We also see a solid performance on every category: auto loans, student loans, installment loans, even better than pre-COVID. And here, I think we need to be mindful that there are a lot of government stimulus that might be affecting this. So we might not see the real picture, and this might be transitory, but we think governments will keep stimulating and helping citizens in hardships. We're also seeing a lot of payment holidays. And in our experience and some of our peers, we're seeing that those borrowers that are proactive in asking for payment holidays are performing better as a cohort than the rest. And we think because those borrowers are showing a high intent of paying. We're also seeing the unemployment rate trending in the right direction. And we think credit card receivables are a very reliable and crisis-resistant instrument to access this category. We have more than 20 years of data going through different financial crises that show us the case.